What's up, guys? Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 winners from the introduction of ISO-Blue, because ISO-Blue is coming soon and it will shake up the game a bit. So let's get into it. And then on...
You suck!
Alright, so today we are talking about ISO-Blue, so I'm going to give you a super short recap on what ISO-Blue is bringing to the table for the various classes, but if you want the full rundown, Tana has a video posted about what ISO-Blue does. Definitely go check that out. But so, the super short TLDR is at level 2 for all classes, they're all going to get 10% more max health. At level 4 for all classes, they're going to get an additional 10% health, damage, armor, focus, and resistance. And that is all in addition to the actual stat bonuses they'll get from the crystals. As for the specific class benefits, Striker's going to get 15% more damage, and on primary hit, if the target is vulnerable with a duration of 2 or more, they'll also steal 10% max health from the primary target. Raider is going to be bringing another 5% crit chance, another 5% crit damage, going to gain 10% flat damage, and then on active ability hit, a 40% chance to attack the target for 60% piercing. Also going to apply +1 vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. Skirmisher is going to gain another 10% damage on assists. On primary hit, they're going to apply 2 vulnerable, and they're going to gain 50% focus for their attack. They're also going to flip positive effects to bleeds instead of clearing if attacking into a vulnerable target. Healers are going to gain 15% active healing. On turn, apply regeneration to the lowest health ally and heal that ally for 5% of the character's max health. And on primary hit, if the target is vulnerable, they're going to clear 1 bleed or minor bleed from the lowest health ally, and they're going to gain 10% flat damage. Fortifiers are going to gain an additional 10,000 barrier on spawn, and on any ally turn, if the fortifier has barrier, they're going to gain minor defense up. They're also going to get an additional 5% max health as barrier on spawn, and then when the character has barrier, they're going to gain 4,000 additional armor and the ability to hold 10% more max barrier. All right, so having said that, I want to clarify a few things. Firstly, this is not a list of characters you need to rush to level 5 blue ISO necessarily. This is just pointing out which characters are going to see the biggest jumps in their effectiveness from level 5 blue ISO. However, obviously your most powerful characters on your most viable teams that you use most often are the ones that you should keep investing in. All right, and I also want to mention that this list will be heavily dominated by skirmishers. You will see a few other classes appear on the list, but it is primarily dominated by skirmishers because the change to skirmishers mechanic when attacking a vulnerable target just opens up so many combo possibilities and does wonders for so many existing kits in the game. Also, be sure to stay tuned after this list. We have a fair handful of honorable mentions, as well as some characters that didn't make the cut because the benefits apply to their entire team. So yeah, stick around for that, but without further ado, let's get into the list. Coming in at number 10, Taskmaster. And Taskmaster is starting us off. He of course makes an excellent skirmisher, primarily because he is assisting constantly on a full mercenary team, which means not only can he steal positive effects, but he will then be flipping positive effects into bleeds every time he's attacking a vulnerable enemy, and he assists constantly. So he's really going to enjoy ISO-Blue. Coming in at number 9, Miss Marvel. And yet again, she's on here as a skirmisher, and for the same reasons as Taskmaster, she assists a lot. She's also going to enjoy that little bit of a bump to the assist damage because her assists do quite a bit of damage, as that is the nature of her kit. And yeah, being able to flip those positive effects into bleeds, she's just going to be assisting all the time and just loading the enemies up with bleeds, stealing all their positive effects. Very, very powerful. Coming in at number 8, Toad. And Toad has a very unique interaction when you run him as a skirmisher. Once ISO-Blue gets introduced, I will be switching him over to skirmisher because in addition to being able to remove positive effects, he will be able to flip them into bleeds, and then he can extend negative effects with his special, particularly bleeds. leading to a lot of free damage. It also works really well with his basic attack because it slows the opponent, which actually means he can basic attack to both slow them and create bleeds, and then because he will be faster than his slowed opponent, he will have time to then be able to use his special to extend the slows and the bleeds. Very, very powerful. Coming in at number 7, Venom. Now, Venom is also going to really benefit from Skirmisher, and a lot of people were tempted to run Venom as a striker because it would allow him to use his ISO bonus attack to essentially hit twice and flip 2 positive effects with the basic and then 2 positive effects with the bonus attack. And one of the main disadvantages of that is that it prevented you from also running Anti-Venom as a striker and getting the full benefit out of Anti-Venom, because Venom would be consuming some of the vulnerables that Anti-Venom would have capitalized on. But this new inclusion of Skirmisher means that Venom can flip 2 positives to negatives with his normal basic, and then flip 2 more positive effects into bleeds, allowing Anti-Venom to literally take advantage of additional vulnerables created by Venom. So this is really, really huge for Venom. Not to mention, even as a solo character, he will still have the ability to flip 4 positive effects to negative effects with a single basic attack. And this, of course, works really, really well with his ultimate, which allows him to spread negative effects from the primary target to any nearby enemies. So it is just really, really awesome for him. Coming in at number 6, Pyro. Another member of the Brotherhood makes the list, and yet again, he makes an incredible skirmisher for a variety of reasons. Primarily, the fact that he could really use the focus boost, and he is going to get some additional focus, 60% flat focus, and then 50% focus on primary attack, which is just what this guy needs right now. Not to mention, it allows him to flip positive effects into even more bleeds, and then his ultimate is going to extend the duration of any bleeds on the target. So it's just going to greatly ramp up the amount of damage this guy can do, and he loves just putting bleeds all over the field. So it's going to be a huge boost to Pyro. Coming in at number 5, Carnage. And yet again, Carnage will make an incredible skirmisher. If you're not sick of hearing me say so-and-so is going to be a great skirmisher, still going to do this a few more times, because skirmisher is greatly changing up what a lot of characters that deal with debuffs excessively can do, and Carnage is no exception. Not only will he now be able to generate bleeds with his basic attack or on a counter or an assist that he can then spread around to other people with his basic attack, but it will also create more debuffs on a primary target, which he can then use his special on to do even more damage. So because this greatly increases the capacity for his special to nuke someone, that's why he ranks so highly on this list. Coming in at number 4, Graviton. And yet again, Graviton makes an excellent skirmisher. And again, it revolves around the interplay that he is going to have with the bleeds that he can now create. So when he attacks a vulnerable target, he will be able to flip 2 of their positive effects into bleeds. However, his passive will extend any negative effects on the target when they drop below 50%, which means he can generate even more damage out of those bleeds. And then his basic attack is going to do additional damage based on how many debuffs the character has. So if he's able to constantly generate additional negative effects on the target, he will not only extend those for more damage, but he's just going to outright hit them harder anytime he uses a basic attack. It makes Graviton so much stronger, and that's why he ranks this highly on the list. Coming in at number 3, Cull Obsidian. Our first non-skirmisher entry into this list, Cull Obsidian is going to be an incredible healer, particularly as a solo character or for players that do not have Ebony Maw and can't run the full Black Order, because he can now grant himself a full regeneration buff. He has a passive that gives him plus 1000 resistance when he has regeneration, and previously he was not able to capitalize on receiving minor regen from the healer class, but with ISO Blue, he will now be able to grant himself full regeneration stacks as long as he is the lowest health ally, and considering he can taunt, he's going to be drawing a lot of the aggro, which means it's very likely that he will grant himself that regen and give himself a huge boost to his resistance, making him an even more super solid solo tank. Coming in at number 2, Mr. Sinister. And Mr. Sinister is clocking in on this list as a fortifier, in particular because the new fortifier will allow him to gain a minor defense up any ally turn that occurs while he has barrier. So he'll have decent barrier uptime, and if he gains that minor defense up, his special ability will allow him to share that minor defense up with his entire team. This is super useful. This won't come up as frequently specifically in War Defense because minor defense up is overridden by a full version of defense up, and they do get defense up on spawn and war defense. This is even going to be huge for matchups like X-Force into the Marauders, where someone like Negasonic's ultimate will clear the defense up. And of course, this is amazing for any game modes outside of war defense, and then even in war defense, those defense ups wear off after the first couple of turns if they weren't already removed. So every special beyond that, he will again be able to share a minor defense up with his entire team. And that's very, very powerful for an already awesome character. Finally, coming in at number 1, Bishop. If you thought Bishop was an awesome skirmisher before, ISO Blue is turning Bishop into the God King of skirmishers. This guy counterattacks like crazy, which means that in addition to removing positive effects from enemies, if he's counterattacking into an enemy with vulnerable, he will now also flip 2 of their positive effects into bleeds. So he's doing even more damage with his counters, an additional 300% damage, in fact, from the bleeds. Not only that, but he has amazing offense uptime on his team, which means that a good amount of the bleeds he's going to be applying from the counterattacks are going to be offensed up. It is so much more damage and all the buff removal. It's going to be insane. And that is why Bishop is number 1 on this list. All right, and I did promise you guys some honorable mentions, so I've got a list over here, and in no particular order. Ultron as a fortifier. You don't necessarily want to run Ultron as a fortifier, but you can, because he'll have a good chance of granting himself an additional minor defense up, and that could be the difference of having an extra positive effect when he uses his ultimate, which could give him enough ability energy to summon his bots that much sooner. Not to mention he's also getting red stars now, so he's going to be very, very viable for endgame content, so something to consider. Also want to mention Proxima Midnight and Hawkeye and Ant-Man, all as skirmishers, just because they get called to assist a lot. They didn't make the list because it doesn't benefit them more than average as solo characters per se, but Proxima will be doing a lot of assists with Corvus, Hawkeye will be doing a lot of assists with Black Widow, Ant-Man will be doing a lot of assists on the Pimtech team, so that's why they're on here. Hela, also an interesting skirmisher. She will be able to apply more bleeds that she can spread with her ultimate. However, this can be a positive as well as a negative because she spreads a limited amount of negative effects. So sometimes she'll end up spreading the bleeds that she's created instead of something like an ability block, and it could actually be a detriment. Last solo honorable mention is Red Skull as a fortifier. He didn't make the list because this is only for war defense and it's only for specific counters. But one of the ways to counter Red Skull on war defense is to apply a defense down to him, like with Ironheart on the power armor team. And if you run him as a fortifier, he will be able to give himself a minor defense up, which will greatly reduce the incoming damage that even a team like Power Armor can do to him. But again, it's only for war defense, and you can still just use someone like Baron Zemo or Black Bolt. And finally, we have some team honorable mentions. Now, all of these are pretty significant boosts, but it's for the teams as a whole. So in no particular order, the Fantastic Four team, in particular Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, The Thing, and She-Hulk, running them as fortifier. It's going to do quite a bit. They'll essentially all have permanent minor defense up because there's always going to be an ally with barrier, and you already want to run a lot of them as fortifier because Sue Storm is already going to essentially retaliate anytime someone on the Fantastic Four team who has barrier gets attacked. So they'll all just be quite a bit tankier, and you'll still have Sue counterattacking like mad. Also want to mention the X Factor team, in particular Longshot, Shatterstar, and Polaris. The improvements to Raider just mean even more crit chance, even more crit damage, and the chance to bonus attack for that piercing damage means they have even more opportunities to score crit. Now, a lot of them have multi-target or multi-hit, so they're probably going to get a crit anyway, and the bonus attack will not give them additional perks. It would still count as one crit during that turn. However, in instances where you're using just like a Longshot or Shatterstar basic and they don't get the crit, that follow-up bonus attack could be the difference of scoring a crit on that turn. So Raider is just going to be an excellent boost for that entire team. And finally, honorable mention, Astonishing X-Men. People prefer to run different members as skirmisher. We recommend Kitty Pryde and or Iceman, depending on the situation. But whoever you have skirmisher, that team calls lots of assists all the time. They could always benefit from even more dispel and even more damage. And so with the changes to skirmisher, that's exactly what you're going to get. Lots of dispel, lots of bleeds, and then Jubilee can spread bleeds with her special, so it can end up being quite a bit more damage. So that team really benefits from the changes to skirmisher. All right, sorry if that was a bit of a long video, but there was a lot of good info that we wanted to put in this one. So thank you guys very much for checking it out. If you have any suggestions for characters that you think we overlooked who are going to really benefit from ISO Blue, please leave that in the comments below. But as I said, that is all I've got for you guys today. So please be sure to like, subscribe, and go see the Blue Man group, and I will see you guys real soon. Until next time. Peace!